I'm at the University of Sydney, where I studied and received my Bachelor of Education degree. I'm helping out with a program called Compass, which is run by the university for high school students, and you can read more details about it at their website if you're curious. It's been a strange mix of feelings being on campus. Though I haven't been back to uni since I graduated, there's a part of me that feels really at home here, walking among the buildings that make you feel a bit like you're at Hogwarts. I suppose that isn't surprising, being that I spent 4 years of my life here, and I always came to uni 5 days a week. But there's another part of me that feels very disoriented and confused being here. And the campus itself looks very different now than it was when I was a student. Walking from Railway Square to Victoria Park, I noticed quite a few old buildings had been torn down. New ones had either replaced them or were in the midst of construction. Crossing the footbridge from Wentworth over City Road is bizarre because it goes in a different direction now than before. And the fancy law building on Eastern Avenue, it was literally just a huge hole in the ground during my final year of study. But it's not mainly the physical aspects of the university that are giving me this cognitive disconnect. I walked past the front lawn just now and saw a bunch of students lounging around on the grass, and I figured that they must be on a 2 or 3 hour break or something like that. Back in the day, I had quite a few of those because I attended maths lectures, which traditionally were held at 8 a.m. and finished at 9, and then I'd have to wait around till 11 or 12 when my first education class was on. So I remember somewhere in the back of my mind what it was like to have breaks like that, but now that I've been a full-time worker and also a parent for a number of years now, it just seems weird for me to look at people sitting around doing nothing for such long stretches of time. Seeing those students brought back a lot of memories, but it also made me think of a few things I wanted to say. So here, from the perspective of someone young enough to remember uni, but old enough to see it with some objectivity, are 3 thoughts on university students and time. Firstly, uni students, use your time wisely. This is a very special and limited chapter of life, so you don't want to waste it. I don't want to caricature all uni students as lazy people. I remember my time at university as incredibly busy. They were definitely way more full than my days at high school. But the plain fact of the matter is that no one, with the possible exception of retirees, has the sheer quantity of disposable time that uni students have. Most unis have 2 semesters that are 13 weeks long, which is 26 weeks where you're obliged to turn up to classes and sit assessments and so on. That means you have 50% of the year where you can literally do whatever you like. Now, I know that's something of an exaggeration because people have responsibilities to part-time jobs and other things like that, but it's not that far from the truth. So the question for you is, what will you do with all those hundreds of hours? Will you sleep, study, work, travel, read, learn an instrument, party, volunteer, hang with friends? Whatever you do, make sure it's something you can look back at from the vantage point of someone working 9 to 5 every day with just 4 weeks of annual leave a year, from the perspective of someone who no longer has that same kind of disposable time. Make sure you can look back from that perspective and say, I'm glad I made those choices. In other words, spend your time wisely. By the way, please don't get me wrong. When you enter full-time work, it's not like they lock you in a prison or something. Workers have a very different kind of freedom to uni students, but that's a topic for another day and another video. So how do you know if you're spending your time wisely or not? Well, that leads me to the second thing I wanted to say, which is uni students, spend your time purposefully. Think long and hard and work out what the purpose of your time at university is. And the most obvious answer to that question is, it's a stepping stone to full-time work. Well, fair enough. But there's so much more to uni than vocational training. And to be honest, in most jobs these days, including mine, the lion's share of what you need to know about work will be learned at work, not uni. Basically, you need to be able to answer the question, what am I going to this place for? Why spend 3 or 4 or 5 or more years doing university? What's the purpose that's going to make all those hundreds of hours traveling and those thousands of dollars in debt all worthwhile? Is it to please your parents? Form new relationships? Challenge your own view of the world? Once you establish that, then you can decide the ways to spend your time that will be in accordance with those goals. So university students, spend your time wisely, spend your time purposefully, and lastly, spend your time thankfully. It's a truism of human experience that no matter what we're doing, our hearts easily gravitate toward and fasten on the hard and frustrating things in our present situation, no matter what that situation might be. That's what us humans are like. It takes effort to be grateful for things, but whinging and complaining come naturally to us. It doesn't matter how good your circumstances are or how long you've been looking forward to them. It only takes a very short amount of time to discover and dwell on the things that annoy you. I mean, some of us spent our entire HSC year looking forward to its end and anticipating university and everything that will be awesome about it. And then we got there and we're all like, oh, my timetable is awful. The coffee's so expensive. My lecture makes me sleepy. I had to pull an all-nighter because I was finishing those 4 assignments that were all due at the same time. And I hate listening to noisy high school students on public transport. So that's what we say, and that's how we feel. We let the negatives dominate our experience. But this is just classic first world problems, There are people in the world who would die for a primary education. And here we are complaining about receiving a tertiary education. So just stop and remember what a privilege it is to be able to go to university. Remember all the benefits that we take for granted and that can only come to those with university experiences and qualifications. Remember that you live in a society that recognizes the worth of educating its young adults rather than putting them straight into the unskilled workforce, and is therefore willing to loan uni students billions of taxpayer dollars in order to make widespread higher education a viable alternative, even to those without a cent to their name. Remember it and be grateful for it. Spend your time wisely, spend your time purposefully, and spend your time thankfully. You won't regret it.